Thank you guys so much for making the time to join us today. Over the next 20 minutes, we're going to talk to you a little bit about how the Salesforce and AWS partnership are driving data and AI impact with one of our joint customers, Buyer's Edge, and we're really excited to be here with you today, so thank you for making the time. We're going to be talking about some pretty exciting stuff, so just make sure, a reminder, make any and all purchasing decisions based on products and services that are currently available. All right, let's start with some introductions. We are thrilled, as I mentioned, to have one of our partners here on stage with us. Josh, why don't you kick us off with some intros?
Sure. Yeah, so Josh Tackett, happy to be here. Thanks for the invite. I have been CTO for Buyer's Edge for about 5 years, coming on 5 years. I've been coding since I was 14 years old. That's why I look like a child, but I am CTO. And I've been with Buyer's Edge about 10 years in total in some capacity. Yeah.
Awesome. John?
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm John Bussman. I am with Salesforce, and I lead our technical partner marketers. So if it's anything to do with ones and zeros, from basically AWS to Zoom, I'm working with you. So, and?
Awesome. And my name is Katie Anderson. Feel free to call me Anderson. Most of my team does. And I am on the Salesforce Strategic Tech Partnerships team, and I lead our partnership with AWS. And speaking of that partnership, I wanted to ground today's conversation in really why we're bringing together these two industry leaders. So we're bringing together the #1 AI CRM, Salesforce, and the #1 cloud provider, AWS, to make our joint customers more productive, more innovative, and most importantly, more successful during this AI era. So why hear it from me when you can hear it from one of our customers? What we want to do today is keep it really casual and conversational and talk a little bit more with Josh about how we have used this partnership with Buyer's Edge. So, to get started, why don't we first take a little bit of a step back. Why don't, Josh, you tell us a little bit more about Buyer's Edge? What do you guys do?
First, I always hated this picture, too, by the way.
It's great.
I never wear a suit, so I find it strange, because I'm always in a hoodie.
We were ready for you to show up black tie.
Yeah, that might be AI generated up there. Anyway, Buyer's Edge, we are a restaurant data analytics company. We've been around about 25 years, but we really took off in the last 5 years. Coincidental that I was CTO? Maybe, maybe not. No, we did really well before. We turned into a tech company from a GPO. We do restaurant data analytics on $60 billion a year flowing through the system. And we acquire tons of companies. We have over 25 different software systems and brands, which is why we have some of the problems you're going to hear about today.
Awesome, super helpful context. I don't know if you guys heard that, but he said 25 plus brands.
It's a lot.
That's a lot to manage. I imagine with that comes a lot of scaling pains and growing pains too.
Yeah.
Would be helpful to hear a little bit about how you guys manage data across 25 different systems.
Yeah, it's tricky because when I took over as CTO, I had about 10 companies. And then what I realized rapidly was that John, our CEO, was going to just keep buying shit as fast as he possibly could. So I was like, oh, I can set the system up for 10. And then I was like, oh, well, now it's 15. And that was like 6 months. And now it's 20, and now it's 25. And he is not slowing down. We moved into Europe. So what I realized is that I needed a central source of truth, which all the developers will understand. I needed one place because there's shared customers throughout the systems. They do different things, but they have the same users. And I needed to normalize that in one place, and that became Salesforce for us. Salesforce for the customers like restaurants, manufacturers, distributors, and then Redshift for transactional data. Because sometimes I'll see the same invoice if they bought chicken or fish or whatever in 10 different places. So that became very tricky to make sure you're not duplicating data and that everybody's speaking the same language.
So I have one big question, though. I mean, that's like the most extreme scope creep I've ever heard, where you started with like connect these few data sources, and now you've got 25.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how do anyone scope creep ever? I mean, when you're thinking about like the scale and how that changes what you're trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the most important thing, I actually inherited a Salesforce instance and then did a large rewrite. And we had this is going to get a little technical, but we in Salesforce had a 5-level hierarchy, structured 5-level. So the problem with that was, well, what if it's a one location structure? Like, what do I duplicate it 5 times? That's not reality. And when I organize databases, I always try and represent the real world as accurately as possible in the data set. So what I ended up doing was I re-architected Salesforce into a linked list structure. So it was infinite and minimal as much as I could. And when you do that, now you can expand and you can handle any structure that you need. And you can also start to handle any business structure, because we have SaaS businesses, we have GPOs, we have pure data companies. I mean, you name it, we're buying it, apparently. Yeah, in many countries as well, so.
So you started talking a little bit about how you've done this in Salesforce. What was the first step you took, and maybe even some of the teams? Who else had to be involved?
That's a good question. The first step was actually bringing all of the data into Salesforce. Because, I mean, you guys know, I had 15 databases to start, then I ended up with 25. That is an arduous task, right? You bring it into Salesforce, they're all duplicated. There was a lot of data ops people, and the truth is, there was a lot of manual cleaning. I mean, you're going eyes on lines, ripping through, is this the same Billy's Barbecue as this? Is it different? Is it in the same building? How does that look? And Salesforce has some tools for like data duplication detection and things like that we use to expedite the process, which helped us tremendously.
That's awesome. We love to hear that. Yeah. I think what would be helpful for the audience too is thinking a little bit more about why and how the Salesforce and AWS partnership and maybe bringing some of this data together helps question. Specifically here too.
Yes. So it was like magic when I found out that you guys were partnering.
We love to hear that.
Yes, because I was...
Keep going.
I was so invested in both systems, right? I'm like pumping 25 systems into this over here on Salesforce. I've got $60 billion flowing in over here in Redshift. And I'm trying to get the data to go from one place to another place so that everybody can understand it. And then you guys announced this partnership, and I'm like, thank you, God. And then we set up Data Cloud, and we use 0 copies, so I also don't have to battle against, no offense, the governor limits, the record limits. It's a little cheaper for me, which is good, very effective. And the other thing...
Cost efficient.
Cost efficient, is that on there? Perfect.
Yes, it's on there.
Speaking of cost efficient, I will make this shameless plug too to all of you guys. We're an enterprise data partner with AWS, which means we have to grow by X% a year, but we get savings. But we also spend a ton on Salesforce. And the minute you guys partnered, we could pay for Salesforce through the marketplace, which gave us all that % that we needed. So that was nice. It was a nice little kicker. Hired like 3 extra developers that I didn't have before.
I want to call that out real quick. Who could use 3 extra developers?
Anybody?
Because that was the cost savings that came back from it, and just from being able to use the existing AWS credits that you were had to use anyways, and now you can free them up.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yep.
That's awesome. I think that it's great to hear not only the data impact, but also the procurement efficiencies as well. And those are some of the things that we're trying to bring to life through this partnership. Would be great to talk a little bit more about maybe some of the data that sits in Salesforce versus some of the data that sits in Redshift. And maybe thinking through the strategy of how and why having these 0 copy capabilities is so beneficial.
Yeah, the 0 copy stuff was important for me because I have a lot of people ask me, are you ever going to put transactional data into Salesforce? And the answer was resoundingly no. I have $60 billion of transactional data. I think we do 180 million invoice lines a year. That's a lot of data. Like I would never pump all of that in. The limits that you'd hit, the data pipeline, the ETLs you have to build, it'd be chaos. You wouldn't get it done in time. But with 0 copy, you pretty much just turn it on, right? You're like, it's already sitting here in Redshift, and you can say, I want this data from these, or I want this data from these tables into Data Cloud, and I intermix it then and mingle it with the customer data. So then immediately I had customer data with their transactions. So who are they? Who do they buy from? What did they buy? And then what I do, I don't know if this is the next slide, but I'll get ahead. And then what I do is I take what they buy, and now that it's in Data Cloud, I'm able to have insights and analytics and notifications from that. And this will be important for you guys. And they're not just developer driven. Before it was like, did your chicken price go up or down? Well, dev had to build something to hit Redshift, to run the query, have all that process. When it's in Data Cloud, I don't want to say it's normal human beings that are not superhuman developers can just go in and configure it and send it out as fast as you can. So that limited dev resource you have, now all of a sudden the technical ability becomes very wide for your whole team. It's became powerful for us.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the top things I've also heard. I heard it from yourself, but also hear from other customers as well, is the harmonization that actually happens with Data Cloud that allows you to do that. Yeah. Because that takes out, everyone's got, what version is it? Am I going to be able to, Is it here? Is it there? This takes care of all the different elements all at once.
It does. The other thing, Data Cloud, it pipes pretty directly into Marketing Cloud and Pardot, which we use both.
Oh, perfect.
So it was nice. It became a very big became a nice pipeline for us. And like you guys know, I was doing a really good job of telling somebody, hey, your chicken price went up 10%. And they were like, that's terrible. I'm like,
Nobody wants to hear that.
nobody wants to hear that. And they were like, what do I do about it? And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I'm just giving you insights. Now what I'm able to do is actually push them something, and they can actually take action on it because it's a marketing or business insight.
That's great.
With something on top of it saying, here's a different product you could buy, you could order from a different distributor, so it took that next step, as opposed to just, here's the problem, good luck.
That's awesome.
So not only having just like this really good synchronized data set, now you're actually having triggers and things that are
Yes.
firing off on top of it, and you're bringing action into this.
Yeah, and let me hit this a little better. And the important thing about the triggers is that they're being defined by the business stakeholder who understands what is necessary. Because like when a developer defines a trigger, they get a ticket, they're trying to understand what to do, and they build it. When the person who writes the ticket can actually define the trigger, it's super powerful.
Yeah.
That's
Amazing.
great. So you talked a little bit about some of the internal developer benefits.
Yeah.
You started telling a little bit of how it's bleeding into actual customer experiences. It's creating, better marketing campaigns. What are some of the other impacts that unifying all of your data have had towards your customer experiences and how they engage with the Buyer's Edge platform?
Well, there's tangible things. We did notice that so when a customer signs up for the platform, they might be buying from US Foods and Cisco. They're going to add US Foods and Cisco. Like, we're going to get that data, right? Or Cheney Brothers or PFG, the big ones. But we started seeing people, when they were getting these analytics all brought together and sent out to them, adding all their little distributors. So our $40 billion of purchase data grew, not because of sales, but because of increased functionality that we were using Data Cloud to provide, and Redshift and the whole partnership. So that was a big deal, because we make money on the volume, so that helps us quite a bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's great. So it sounds like you guys, in this whole process, have really worked hard to unify all of your data, and now through this process have really set yourselves up really well to start acting on that data. You're starting to do some of that today.
Yeah.
And I know John wanted to talk a little bit more about how maybe in the future you're going to really bring that to life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually have a confession. So when we first spoke, you were telling me about this great harmonized data set that you had, and I got kind of excited. So I have a confession to tell you that I was fanboying a little bit about what you're going to be able to do, because you actually created an agentic data source. And now, if we're thinking about AI, there's been waves. We've had the predictive wave that we saw, which you're already doing.
Yes.
And then there's been co-pilots, which we kind of had like a quick beat in the last year. Most we saw co-pilots come in. And now we're moving towards agents. And what I'd love, that's my confession, and now it's my 2 points.
Yeah.
One is, how does this set you up to be able to do both, first the predictive and the predictive AI, and then the second question is going to be, what would you like to do with some of the agents now that you have this amazing data set? Yeah,
what's interesting, we can do the predictions, as you mentioned. We've been doing that for a long time. And like I said, we're telling them that the chicken went up 10%. Agentforce, I was skeptical at first, I gotta be honest. I was like, okay, another chatbot, Jesus Christ, how many chatbots can I freaking have? And then I was like, okay, what does yours do that's different? And what the big difference is, I can tell you, hey, your chicken price went up 10%. You should switch to another distributor, and then within the chat on Agentforce, they can take an action to make that switch right there in the conversation and push it to Salesforce. That's a game changer, because usually we tell them they have to call somebody, then they have to set it up, they have to go to a different portal, it's chaos. Yeah, it's very seamless.
Hey, let me just ask this, who's heard of Agentforce, just by a quick show of hands? We've got more than, that's good. What I would say is agents have really been on just this year, probably in the last 4 months, but they're coming by storm. And so this is why it's really interesting, exactly what Josh was saying, it's the action. It's the action that you all take on the data, but allow people to take action and have it do it on your behalf. That's what it gets exciting. And that's hopefully we'll be able to find more than those 3 developers. We'll find even more developers to free up for you.
That's true. That would be nice. We're at 184 right now. And while we're up here, I see some of them in the crowd that I promised I would shout them out. Raise your hands on the Buyer's Edge side. There's a couple back here, stands over here in the corner. All right, there we go.
Thank you guys for joining us.
Yes.
Excellent.
Cool. Oh, you know what? Let me mention one other thing I thought about. Does anybody acquire a lot of companies here? Not really? Okay, a couple people.
Yeah.
So you asked this question earlier and I missed it. The one thing very important if you're acquiring companies, you know the onboarding time is money. When you acquire the company, if you already have a centralized clean data set, you have to compare their customer list to what you have. If it's centralized and clean, you can do that immediately, right? That's a big deal because then you can start raising the EBITDA and plugging them into your current Salesforce kind of finances and analytics and everything and have visibility into the acquisition that most people won't get for, honestly, like a year or 18 months. You'll have it in like 6 months and you'll be able to drive that ship that you bought a lot better. So.
That's great. I think it's really helpful to see the big picture of you guys have gone through a huge transformation. It's been a huge year or two of amazing growth.
Yeah.
You've brought together a lot of data, and now you're really starting to bring that into the agentic future that we're in here now. And we have a couple of examples up here on the screen for you guys just so you can visualize and see how some of our other customers are starting to do this. And we're excited to get further off the ground with the Buyer's Edge team. We also have some activations that your team can take too.
Yes. Let's not tell, let's actually do. And you can actually do that today. So if you see a large purple area, that's probably the Salesforce area.
I can see it from here.
You probably can.
Yeah.
You can get hands-on. And this is why it's important for you right now. One is you can build your first agent. You can do it in 15 minutes. That's pretty cool. Two, you can also, when you do it, not only do you get a great Yeti mug, but you also can get a pass to our Trailhead DX conference. And that's going to allow you to actually be with other doers, other developers, other folks in this initiative, in this wave that we're doing. And you don't have to go back and try to get the funding to be able to go that because it's already taken out. So win-win on both of those. So it's booth 740 on that. Number two, check out the QR code. This is where you pull the camera out, take a picture, check it out later, and you'll be able to go straight to our site to get more information about that. And if you want even more information, you can also contact your overall AE. But we really wanted to end is first we wanted to thank, and first, Josh, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Anderson.
Right back at you, John.
Wonderful.
Thank you guys for making the time. We know it's towards the end of the day. We really appreciate it. We'll stick around for a couple minutes if you have any questions, but thank you again.
Cool.
This is great.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.